no chão, dorme no feno, dorme cavalinho, aproveita que é pequeno.
28 semanas, tá tudo em ordem.
Ele é normal?
É.
Dormiu bem? Tive um sonho esquisito. Você anda pela casa de noite. Ana?
So, could you tell us how the film began from the very beginning idea? Because it's a very unique work of film.
Well, we did together our first feature film. It's a movie called Hard Labor. It came out in 2011. And since then, we were, at that year, we were already discussing new ideas for projects. And then I had this dream that I shared with Juliana that was an image of these two women taking care of a baby that was not human in an isolated place. And it had a strong atmosphere, and Juliana responded very positively. And we felt there was a story there, and then we fed the story and allowed it to grow from that situation. And talking about motherhood issues and how the experience of having a child and raising a child changes your life. And so all of those discussions eventually became Good Manners. And this was the title since the beginning. And since the beginning, the idea of giving birth to a child and raising a child was like at the center of the story. Then, of course, the film took a lot of years to develop, and the script changed a lot during the years. But the central themes and the central ideas were there since the beginning. And also the idea of making a fantasy movie, a horror fantasy in São Paulo, was very appealing to us. Hard Labor also had some fantastic elements, and in this film we wanted more fantasy and more fantastic elements. So yeah, that was the beginning, the spark of this project.
Ele tá enorme. Olho grande, boca grande, mão grande. É um menino forte, Ana.
We both, since we were young, we liked horror films and musicals, and especially Disney animations that also mix different genres. And we met in film school, and those kind of preference, it's something that brought us together. And we used to like watch films together and go to the cinema after school. So in a way, what we always wanted to work with those elements. Our other works, they have fantastic elements, but Good Manners is the film where we got deeper in this kind of elements and really did a fantasy film with a lot of musical, and it was extremely fun, and we had a lot of pleasure because it's the kind of filmmaking that we love since we were child. It's something that connects us with cinema, so it was a great experience.
Is there any particular film that has influenced you for the Good Manners?
Well, there is no direct specific reference. We did even when we say Disney, it's a big universe of very different films. But we did think about some films that we love during the process, and discussing with the cinematographer Rui Poças and the production designer Fernando Zuccoloto. We discussed a lot of fantasy films or horror films from the history of cinema, and some we feel inspired us, especially to create the atmosphere of Good Manners. Films like the work of Jacques Tourneur, of Cat People, Leopard Man, I Walked with the Zombie, and also Night of the Hunter. by Charles Lawton. Was a movie that was is a movie that we like a lot, and yeah, I mean, it's the inspiration came from films that managed to make this mix that we were looking for, like a more gothic universe with something that's more contemporary at the same time, and keeping the mood of the film, but also telling the story with the heart. So this type of movie certainly opened way for this. But we are also very personal when we discuss our characters. Like, we're not specifically imitating or sucking from any specific source, but letting ourselves like be open to the characters and what the story told us to do.
I see that you mentioned Louis Fuentes, the cinematographer, right? So is it the first time for you to work with him? How was it? How could you tell about working with him? Because he's collaborating with many American great filmmakers before.
We admire Rui Poça's works in other films, especially João Pedro Rodrigues' films. To Die Like a Man, who has a very special atmosphere. And when we decided to do the project, and there was an opportunity to bring a director from Europe, because we were working with a co-production, and we immediately thought of him. And Sara Silveira, our producer, had already known him and been in contact with him for another project. So she thought it would be possible, because for us it was like, in a way, a big dream to work with him. So she managed to put us in contact, and he really liked the story and his sort of previous work, and he really connected with us. And it was great to have him, because he has a lot of experience and he has a lot of passion for film, and he really likes to understand the stories, and he's really worried in each scene to use the cinematography and the way you shot to enhance the dramatic purpose of each scene. And we work very closely with him and Fernando Zuccoloto, who is the production designer of the film, to create all the visuals of the film, and the colors, the sets, everything. We all discussed it together, and we really get along really well, not only with Rui, but Rui with Fernando, the whole group. And that was very important, because when you are making a fantastic universe, you have to have you have certain rules. You are creating an imaginary world in a way, even though the story is taking place in São Paulo. It's a fantasy São Paulo, so it was important that we all knew what we were doing and that we would have a consistency in the whole film. And also, the film has clearly two parts, and for us it was important that these two parts connect with each other, but at the same time that they would have their own identity. And they were really important to help us create that visual identity.
I think, I mean, it's the images in good manners actually tells a lot more than any word or the story element. Could you tell us, how do you approach to the social matters or this the topics for your own storytelling and filmmaking?
Well, we feel very connected to middle-class reality, because that's what we lived mostly with our families, our lives in Brazil, and we are very interested in history and the origins of the social relations that happen in Brazil today. So we are interested in investigating, for instance, how the slavery period was essential to the formation of the country the way it is today, in a very perverse way a lot of times. And so those are things that are being part of our everyday lives, are interesting to us to bring to the movies that we do. And so in Good Manners, we didn't want to, because the film was a fantasy, to just ignore that those things interest us. So the movie was still a movie that took place in São Paulo. It still had a storyline about a boss and an employee, and so some themes that we discussed in a more realistic way in Hard Labor were brought into Good Manners in a more fantastical way. But that is something that comes out of our observation. I mean, we're not proposing a statement or a manifest regarding some situations, but we feel that that's important to look straight at in order to understand that, to bring that into the movies. And even if it's a fantasy movie, it can be a hopeful movie about breaking of those perverse systems. And yeah, so that is important to us, and it was important for this project.
So do you plan to work together soon?
We have a project together for a series, and we are developing the story, but it's a story about zombies in São Paulo, in the University of São Paulo. So we are currently developing that, and we hope to write and direct together.
Okay. So, anything else you'd like to leave in this interview about the...
I hope the film connects with the Korean audience. I mean, we still haven't talked to them, so we're very excited and anxious about it.
You have the
Let's
chance
see
to
how
do
it goes.
Great, great.